Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Board Game Blog number 6. This is for Thursday, May 23rd, 2013. I thought this would be just a quick one. The Spiel de Jahres nominees were announced, and I thought I'd just give you a little rundown of sort of my thoughts on them. I haven't played every single game on there. I haven't played most of the games on there. I have not played any of the Kinderspiel nominees. Those are the kids' games for, I think small children. I don't have any small kids and, nobody to play them with. From the stuff that I've seen in the past, though, of this, I really wish that these would come over in more quantities and we had some sort of venue that, these could be marketed over here. I don't know that that exists or will ever exist. But the little bit that I've heard from my friends that have smaller kids and things like that, they look really neat, really kind of cool and sort of, educational and things like that. So, unfortunately, I can't speak to those, but, I think they sound neat. That's the only thing I can say there. And then we'll go into the Kennerspiel, which is the more complicated type of game. So first I'll talk about the recommendations, and that's our Terra Mystica and Olkin, the Mayan calendar. Terra Mystica was one that I had at the sort of top of my list of games that were released last year. It's now come out in the States and North America in a little bit more quantity. They didn't quite print enough because I don't think, the demand, etc., printing problems, what else is new. But it's an excellent game and one that I sort of went back and forth on as far as having that as my number one sort of Euro strategy game versus CO2, which I did name my number one strategy. But that was probably the toughest sort of decision I had. I've got a best of 2013 video, so if you're watching this and you haven't seen that video, you can go look it up on YouTube or Board Game Geek or something. But out of the different categories I had for 2013, that was definitely the toughest decision. And one that I've actually, frankly, been playing Terra Mystica more. My group is a little bit lukewarm on CO2. They don't like it as much as me, but, whatever. But definitely a great, great game. Fortunately, I think it's way too complex to be a Kennerspiel winner because, the awards are kind of designed to the average family kind of cruising around, maybe go to Essen or maybe go into the local shop there, especially in Germany, and pick up a game that they can play with the family relatively easily. And Terra Mystica is pretty obtuse, the first time you play it. It's not too bad, for me it's fine because I'm a board game nut, but the family, picking that up would not, I would not subject anybody to that if they were just kind of casually in the market there. The other one is Olkin, and that is an excellent game. It didn't make my top, list of the top 5 Euros. It was probably number 6. That game I think is really good, and I maybe short-shrifted a little bit because it feels a lot like Caylus to me, but not as good. It doesn't feel as good as Caylus to me. There may be some sentimentality or something like that, and Caylus kind of came first, getting in there like that. It's, when you start, you're kind of splitting hairs at this point, is Caylus better than Olkin or whatever. But I think it's an excellent game. It's definitely not gimmicky. It's got the wheels, it's got the time aspect and sort of delayed worker placement where you place a guy and maybe have to wait a couple turns for it to actually do what you want it to do. But I think it's an excellent game, and it's definitely innovative in that sense. And like I said, it's not gimmicky. It's definitely an innovation and a very clever way of dealing with that whole time aspect of sort of putting your worker in there, let it kind of bake and simmer a little bit, and then boop, pops out with something cool. So those are the recommendations. Now, the nominations, I only played one of the nominations. The one that I did play was Legends of Andor, and that's actually a very, very good game, I think. The production quality, the art quality, and sort of just the overall quality of the game it's superior. It's just amazing. Now the problem with that is I don't own it, but a friend of mine does, and I don't know exactly how many sort of quests or scenarios or stories it has. It's not a whole lot, and the couple times we played it, it just seems like once you kind of play one, you've kind of been there, done that. So it's a little bit surprising me it didn't get a recommendation versus a nomination for that aspect of it, because I think it does require, more expansions and things, and I don't even know that, I'm kind of having a mind here of I think there are some that were released on the web. I'm not positive though, but it requires that, and I think that, by itself it needs that, so maybe it shouldn't get the nomination, again, kind of splitting hairs. But I think the production quality and the fact that it's very story driven is a good bonus, I think, for the Spiel de Jahres, because usually it's Euro games, it's kind of a little bit dry, maybe, you know, sort of strategic focused. But it's nice to see a sort of story-driven, theme-driven game get it. So just a little interjection on that note, as I recently had a chance to play Mice and Mystics, and holy cow, I need to go and revise a little bit of my list for last year. I don't know where I'd stick it in the categories I came up with or whatever, but this is an excellent little game. I'm definitely going to review this, probably not in the near future, but in, you know, somewhat near future. I want to play through some of the stories again. But this is really, really cool because it's basically like the Dungeons and Dragons, Ravenloft, and you know, Drizzt and all that stuff. But this one is pure story. It has a very similar feel where it's kind of a dungeon crawl, and you get sort of somewhat random encounters, not too random, because they're driven by the story. But the thing that is interesting to me about this, and I did like those Ravenloft games for the sort of fillery dungeon crawl that they were, this one is way more thematic. Okay, so the Dungeons and Dragons one, you're kind of like, you're doing positions, line of sights, combat rolls, stat checks. You're just very into the number crunching of that system. Whereas this one is totally story driven. Like when I'm playing the game, I don't care so much about all the different stats and things like that. Now it's there, but they're very more flavor, you know, lopsided on that side of the theme and the story. And it has a campaign of, I think, 11 scenarios that you can play through. I know there's an expansion coming out with another campaign book and, you know, more story and more stuff like that. And there's even little sections to read. You know, you don't need a DM to read it. Somebody just reads it and it kind of moves the story along. And it's, yeah, it's a kind of a kiddish story, but it's a very well-rounded and fleshed out and thought out story. And to me, I think this one, I don't know if it was released in Germany, I doubt it, but I think this would be a great candidate for this kind of award. It'd probably fit in the Kenner because it's about as complex and full as Legends of Andor. It's about in that same ballpark. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I think if we ever had like an American one, I kind of go back and forth on that one. If you look at some of my older blogs, this one would definitely should be up for some awards. It's up for some Dice Tower awards, and I think it was up for some Golden Geek awards. So, you know, it's one of those things where I've thought about, like, okay, so I like kind of Mage Wars was one of my top games, and Space Cadets and CO2, and this one is like, it's knocking on that door for sure. So definitely I'll do some kind of video about it in the future there. So anyway, a little interjection there. The other two, Bruges and Palaces of Carrara, I haven't played those. Those kind of look like your standard Spiel games. They're Euro-y, there's card play, there's, you know, different strategic tracks and dice and all this, you know what I mean? It's just kind of your traditional thing that you would expect to win. So I won't really expect Legends of Andor to win. I'll be pleased if it does, but again, the replay value I don't think is necessarily there, but I don't know what it is compared to, you know, the other two. So the Bruges game, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking also forward to Palaces of Carrara too. Bruges is a Stefan Fell game. I'm a giant Stefan Fell nut. I think he pretty much he does a great job of balancing his games and making them very tight and not linear. I mean, there are different paths to victory, but he does a really good job of balancing all the different approaches that one can take to scoring points. And in his games, you can score a veritable salad of points. Now, Palaces of Carrara is a Wolfgang Kramer, and I like his games quite a bit. He had Asara a couple of years ago get a nomination, and he's sort of, I don't know if they had a game last year. He might, well, this came out last year, I guess, in Europe. But he's got a good run of games, and it's just your solid traditional Euros, so I mean, it's possible that one might win as well. I don't expect it to win. I would expect either Bruges or Legends of Andor kind of as your dark horse. So let's move on to the normal Spiel. And I'll talk a little bit about the recommendations first. I've played a few of these. The first one is Riffraff, and I played that maybe 8 months ago at a convention. And it's a very neat little game. You kind of take, you know, blocks and put them on this big ship and have to balance the ship, and it's just an interesting dexterity game. So to me it's almost like a kinder game, but it's probably a little bit complicated for a small child. But it's a really cool game. You can get it at Game Surplus, and he gets it in every once in a while. And you may be able to get it at other websites as well. But I know that he kind of gets them in imported. So if you've got not necessarily small kids, but you know, kids that, or of a medium age, maybe up to preteen and they're 10 years old, definitely take a look at Riffraff. The next one is Divinare, or Divinaire, and that's sort of a deduction game. This is a game I sort of forgot about, played it once last summer, and just have never seen it again, and it was really cool, but it's been superseded by, I think, one of the nominations, which we'll talk about in a second. So I have a suspicion that if one of the actual nominations wasn't around, then Divinary maybe would have moved up into from recommendation to nomination. That's just kind of a hunch, just kind of a guess. But they kind of fit that same sort of mold there. Next one is Escape. That's the dice rolling game. I don't really like this game at all. I played it a few times, and then to me it's very repetitive, and the replay value is just, I just don't like it. And it's almost like I feel like I have to generate fake excitement to get into the game, because it's just rolling constant dice like a million times. So it was one I think a lot of people expected to get a nomination, but I'm surprised it got a recommendation, frankly. So, I mean, I get why people like it. I mean, there's nothing really like it. It's a strict 10 minutes, roll dice, roll dice, roll dice, roll dice for 10 minutes. But, I mean, that was fun, twice. And then the third time I was like, okay, I'm done. Next one is Libertalia, and this game is an okay game, I think. I don't think it's... other people like it more than me, let's just put it that way. Just definitely fell really flat with my group, both groups that I play with. And it's just, the problem I have with this game is the whole ABCD thing. So when you play your cards, you get the numbers, and the lowest one goes first and the highest one goes last or whatever. But so many times the tie is broken by ABCD, and it's like, okay, well, I made the best play possible, and blah, 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 the other guy got it for me, and I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's not that big of a deal, but it just, I don't know. It seems more strategic than it is, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me, and it's a game, so games are like, do you like steak or do you like chicken? So anyway, so let's talk about the nominations. First one, Quicks. Never heard of this game until it was nominated. So it looks like a quick little dice game. Who knows? This may win. I never played it. I don't know anything about it. Second one, I haven't played this either. Augustus. This is kind of the one I think most people, maybe I'm going out on a limb, think that this one could win. I think it's basically bingo with like a Euro bingo, and that sounds, I don't know, it kind of scares me on one hand, because bingo is, bingo, right? But this one has a little bit of sort of push your luck, and sort of kind of, you're betting on what other kind of different people might come up. So, you pull things out of a bag, kind of like you will in bingo, and you have little areas that you place the stuff on. I'm interested to try this one, and I don't expect it to, blow my doors off, but I don't expect it to suck either. So, so that's an interesting game, and that's, I think, one that people are probably have their eye out most for out of these, as this stuff comes over. And I think this one should be coming over here in the next couple of months. It's kind of, trying to remember exactly. And then the one that should win is Hanabi. Okay, this was the French edition that came out in 2010, which was the only reason I didn't make it my game of the year probably last year. This one could have been my game of the year, but I didn't include it because it wasn't really released, and it was supposed to be released over here last year, but I wouldn't have included it anyway because it wasn't released. And for my mind, in 2012, I mean, that's a whole other discussion of when a game actually is released, when it hits. But maybe I will make myself a hypocrite and put it on the list at the end of this year, because it is coming out now. This is an amazing game. I did a video review on it. Go check it out. I explain it much better there. I explain how the game works. It's very simple. But this is a game, one of those that I think is, I don't know that you'll see any games like derived from this, like Dominion 1, and there's 100 clones. But to me, this is on the line of being just about as revolutionary as Dominion in a certain sense. So basically it's telepathy, and you try to be telepathic and also not cheat. Okay, I mean, that is the only way I can explain this, because you're basically trying to cooperatively play cards in the right order, but you basically can't tell each other anything really worth much value. You've got to there's like two kinds of hints you can give: the color and the number of cards they have of that color, and you're holding the cards away from you. And the thing is when you play this and you get some people that have played it a few times, you start to pick up on their body cues, and almost like you can almost pick up on the hairs on their skin standing up, and you get sort of this weird, almost hallucinatory kind of mind meld kind of thing happening as you play the cards. You got to play with the right group of people to do that. If you play with, like, super serious, Euro guys that, don't care for this kind of thing, then it won't work. But if you get the right group and you get this sort of symbiotic state of the cards and what's being played. So if this one wins, if it wins, I'll be a little bit surprised because it's so unique in a way that I think it may, like I said, it's not really for everybody. But I also will be a little bit irritated, to be honest with you, if it doesn't win, because it's very revolutionary. I think it is very simple, and I've talked to people and I think the game's genius, and they're like, "You're crazy, it's not genius." I'm like, "No, it is. It's genius. It's a genius game." So that's pretty much it. Those are the SDJ games, and I haven't played all of them, and just wanted to give you sort of my thoughts on what I expect, and with the stuff that I have played, and make a little bit of a modification to my 2012 releases. That's one of the things you do the lists, at the very end of the year, and maybe don't have a chance to play it, but I screw it. I'm not going to make a list in March. I don't know, whatever. That's just the way I like to do it, I guess. So anyway, that's this week. Thanks. Take care.